essence of existence. At one single moment, he is simultaneous eternal existence, right? So when you talk about existence from a naturalistic, materialistic standpoint, right, you believe that being in time and space is being in existence. Of course, with me, right, I'm showing logical arguments to say that God is outside of space and time, and there needs to be a cause outside of space and time to move the universe into motion.
I don't think that you're showing that logically. I think what you're making is a linguistic mistake. Definitions are what they are. Like, even if it's the case that even the idea of creating something implies time, as far as I understand it. Even if you were to say that maybe, or even if there was something beyond our comprehension in this context, we couldn't access it. We couldn't assume anything about it. Certainly not claim to know that it exists. If you believe that is the source, you obviously you have the freedom to believe that. But I don't see good reasons for that. It seems to me like you're sort of evading the linguistic problems that arise by saying, well, this is what I believe or what I have faith in, and therefore it makes sense to me. It's like, what does it mean to create? It means, from my understanding,
for God, he is creation, right? So when you look at finite beings like us, right, we're craftsmen in a sense. Right, we gather pre-existing materials and we make something new. Right, for us, it wouldn't be creation in that sense. Right, what God is that He is creation, and that the universe came from ex nihilo. Right, so it didn't take time for the universe to create. God is out of space and time, so that He didn't have to get pre-existing materials. Right, He is existence itself. So I mean, you'd either have to maybe accept the definition of a Christian God, right, before you say, that's an impossibility, right? Because if you accept the definition of the Christian God, then that's when these arguments, are starting to maybe make sense. But it doesn't seem like you like the definition of the Christian God, or just a transcendent being.
Well, I think that's special pleading. I think you're saying that all these things work in this context, but then they don't have to apply to God. My thing is, if you can accept this concept of an ex nihilo, why can't you accept it as perhaps a something being true about, how would I say this, a force that could somehow bring of necessity, that could somehow bring the universe into existence? It doesn't have to be a mind or something that creates.
Is this force in space and time?
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I don't think it makes coherent and linguistic sense to talk about these things outside of that context. It seems to me to be logically incoherent. When you say God created time, that to me sounds like, for God to exist, he would have to rely on time in principle. It just seems like, how can... I guess what I would say is, if you think that God doesn't need a cause, why would you assume that the universe does? And to just say that the universe does because there are some things within the universe that do seems strange. Because, apply your own logic for a second. God created everything, so at least according to the Christian view, mm-hmm. everything in his own image, right? He created things in existence.
Humans, yeah.
He created
humans in his own image.
Right. So God created things in the universe that are contingent. He could have created things differently. He created things that are not infinite. He created things that are subject to cause and effect, the same way that we were describing earlier. So God was, as a necessary being, created things that are contingent. So if that's possible for God, I don't see why it couldn't be possible for the universe to have a necessary aspect to it, while also giving birth to things that may be contingent. It's like,
well, you'd have to justify that. You'd have to justify that from a naturalistic standpoint, right? So you have to come up with this idea that the universe is necessary, and you have to give arguments for that, right? Sure. To me, there are no arguments to believe that the universe is necessary, and all the arguments to believe that the universe is in fact not necessary. And because it's not necessary, that means it doesn't have to be here, right? So if from a materialistic, naturalistic standpoint, right, you can give me, evidence that the universe is in fact necessary, then of course, right, that would be debunking my argument. But the fact is that where's the evidence leading? It's leading to the fact that the universe is not necessary.
So what you
and because
just
it's
said,
not necessary, then it began to exist.
So what you just said is exactly why I reject your notion of God, because I've seen no reason.
Why?
Because I don't see any reason to assume that God is necessary. That especially that what is necessary is something that can exist outside of time. Because again, I think it's a logical inconsistency, a linguistic inconsistency, and that
it's not against reason. It's not against reason or logic. It's just beyond it. Right, so we can't comprehend it as a finite being. You say it's against reason. Well, it's not against reason. It's just beyond reason.
Well, but I mean that I don't know what that even if something, if by beyond reason you mean beyond our perception, well then to make any claims about it, I think is irrational, because if even if such thing existed, we couldn't know anything about its nature. To me, that seems like an evasion. And again, talking about evidence, you would have to show me evidence that a mind can exist independent of the physical. You would have to show me evidence that the non-physical can interact with the physical. You would have to show me evidence that existence can take place within outside of space and time, and have to show how that can be linguistically sensible. These are all things that, I think whatever failures of my worldview you can point to, and there may be some, I don't think that gives credibility to your worldview, because I think it suffers from similar problems. But I think you're sort of making a special pleading and saying, well, the thing is mysterious, so I don't need to provide the same kind of evidence that I would provide that you require me to provide. Because when I ask for the same thing, the response is, well, this is beyond our comprehension. Well, if it's beyond our comprehension, then we have no reason to think that it's actual.
Well, it's not. So the thing is, as I said when I started the laying out of the arguments, I said God is available to our natural reason, right? So these arguments are logical arguments, right, for the existence of God and the fact that he is a necessary transcendent source. So you don't have to believe. No, but you don't have to believe that there is a mind outside of space and time, right? But these arguments lead to the mind, the necessary mind that has to be out of space and time. If you understand what I'm saying.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just disagree with it, because I don't think that's actually. I don't think that's actually what you're leading to. I think you're making a fallacy of composition. I think you're making several non sequiturs. I think you're sort of ignoring the linguistic problems that arise from talking about existence outside of space and time. And I think you're also left with the mind-body problem of how one can interact with the other. And ultimately, I don't think any of those issues are really resolved, certainly not logically speaking, by the arguments you're putting forth.